You are listening to the World Sports Show on WPPMLP Philadelphia. Soccer-based sports talk covering local, nation, and global soccer. Broadcasting from the Philly Cam studio in Center City, Philadelphia on 106.5 FM.
Joining him on the show tonight is Coach Lelse Gallimore. I want to thank you, Coach, for joining me. How are things out in Washington?
Things are good. You know, the slow roll through COVID and trying to make ends meet. But, you know, I personally am better off than I know a lot of people are. So we're just trying to do our part to get through the pandemic and stay positive and look for that light at the end of the tunnel that's hopefully coming sooner than later.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of ups and downs, obviously, in the year that I'm trying to end the year on a positive note, probably like you, that I think one of the great things that came out of this year was the Girls Academy League, and you were named commissioner. I think that we're just trying to spread the word out there and explaining exactly what it is, kind of what your role is and what it is. So I'm going to let the audience out there, you explain to me what exactly is the Girls Academy League.
Yeah, the Girls Academy League is a girls-only elite playing platform that kind of arose out of the demise of the former U.S. Soccer Development Academy back in April. And a group of very motivated club academy directors, along with some other motivated people to save this playing experience for just about 7,000 girls, got together and formed a league. And, you know, as much as people would like to think, you know, it means that the youth soccer landscape is still fractured. It means that we're still, you know, not everyone's on one pathway or under one umbrella. There's plenty of kids out there to provide competitive opportunities to. And, you know, it's this group, these clubs, again, banded together to keep this playing experience alive for close to 70 clubs. And so here we are, you know, at the end of the year, looking back on all that's been accomplished. And I didn't even come on board until probably 3 months into the process of the board of directors putting this together. And we've just gained so much ground, you know, our affiliations with MLS, our affiliation with USYS, our affiliation with our brand sponsor Adidas, and our partnership with the DPL is a potential, you know, an option as a tier 2 league where that need is in certain markets. Our you know, the thing right now for us is that we're not playing in every market. In the fall, we were able to, through safety protocols and through different areas of the country, have close to, I want to say 1,200 games take place between August and now, which is just amazing to look back and during COVID and think about. And then there were some markets like Southern California and Washington and Chicago area where there was nobody playing, you know, where they were pretty much in lockdown for the most part, and no competition, but some training. And so it's been interesting to try to navigate through this time. But I do think one of the unique things about this league, in addition to it being the only girls elite platform, is that, you know, it was founded on the voice of the players. So the first thing that happened in this league almost from the get-go was like, you know what, these girls, these players at this elite level have sort of had the rug yanked out from underneath them. What is it they want out of their playing experience? What is it that they expect? And so the advisory panel was born, and we have adult leaders that work with that group, and there's a conference rep for each 7 conference. There's a club rep for all 70 clubs. There's a team rep for each team within each club, and it kind of trickles down to empower these girls to have a voice in what they want their league to be about. And it's probably the one single thing that made me passionate about taking the job, to be honest. I'm not too much about the rat race. I'm not too much about the power politics that are involved with youth soccer. I want us to be the best that we can be with our vision and mission, which is to let the voice of the players prevail, and to make sure that competitively they're on a pathway, not just for college soccer, which of course we want to provide them with that opportunity, but the opportunity to see the big vision of what women's soccer can be in this country, the pro pathway internationally, the pathway for young women and girls to be lifelong parts of soccer. So to see that they can be a commissioner, a coach, a referee, a GM, somebody that owns a team, that they can work in men's soccer, and to have every opportunity in the game that boys and men have, and to put people in front of them that are proof that that can happen, has been really a cornerstone and a hallmark of our league. We're anxious for the new year because we haven't been able to have we've had 1,200 and something league games, but we've not been able yet to have an event. But we will get an event in the new year in February in Austin, Texas. So that'll be a great time for our players from across the country to be able to finally see each other off of Zoom, as opposed to just kind of regionally competing in their teams, but to be able to put, get meaningful games in against national competition.
So let's look at this world in a normal world, non-pandemic, that we look at. You said the 7 different regions. That's very, very key that you said that. Here I am in Philadelphia. You're out in Seattle and Washington. That every region's got its different challenges. How important was that when you guys were talking about that? That my needs here in Philadelphia are completely different than your needs.
Yeah, I think it was one of the things too, is that the one of the other differentiators when the DA went away and this league formed is being able to be autonomous and make our own rules, and to be able to say, here's what we've liked in the past with youth soccer in our platform. Here's what we haven't liked. And I do think there were a lot of club academy directors that felt as though the loudest voice or the biggest club or certain people were getting the say in how things went down. And now we have a conference rep, and each conference rep represents every club in that area within that conference. And each technical director and coaching director and academy director is in on those conference meetings, and they all have a say. They're all able to look at their area and say, here's what makes our region unique. Here's what's unique to our geography. Here's what's unique to our demographic. Here's what's unique to our playing calendar. Here's what's unique to the geographical distances between teams. Here's how we can strengthen the league and strengthen our conference, and all collaborate in a way that helps the whole. And I think, for me as now I hate saying it, former coach, but I don't think that's forever. I think I'll always consider myself a coach. I'd rather
kind of like the president. We joke with presidents, say Mr. President. When you see a former president, if you ran into like Clinton, you say, Mr. President, you're still just coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether you like it or not, you got the title.
I love it, Charlie, and I'm glad you called me that. So I think for me, looking at it from that perspective, is that I want our entire league to understand that everyone's going to have their own business model within their club. And COVID has been brutal for youth sports as far as keeping your customer engaged, keeping them paying their dues if they're able to, and just keeping your employees. I mean, there's a business side to sport in the youth game. Even if you're running it as a nonprofit, there's a financial ramification to what everybody's doing in their model. So I just want people on our team in the GA to understand and buy into, which they have. And I think, again, it's what makes it unique, is that we all, we're only as strong as we are together. And everyone, everyone can help each other by doing things in a way that helps the whole league, as opposed to just being vested in your own interest of your club in your area. So it's been a great collaborative effort. I think there's, I got a video from a coach out of Southern California who's a conference rep, Michael Duggan at Our City yesterday. They did like a recap video of the fall, or basically of the last 7 months of their club. And it almost brings tears to your eyes, honestly, on like the people that are just kind of in it and in the trenches, to kind of step back and look at the great work they've done for these kids. And again, Southern California has been one of the areas hardest hit by lockdowns and restrictions, and just finding ways to be able to do things and still keep kids safe and keep them engaged and keep them mentally healthy and in touch with their teammates and with their coaches. So it's been tremendous to be able to I would say next week I'll be able to reflect a little bit more, because I'll have a little bit of a break. But I think it's been really awe-inspiring to be able to look back and see the work that's been done, and to now have a little bit of time to continue to strategize and see how we want to build out Obviously we're in a competitive market with a league that's much, much bigger than ours. But at the same time, we have a lane that we look at as our own lane that we're going to try to maximize in a way that that still provides a competitiveness and yet is, again, it's just about girls.
Yeah.
That's the competitive girls at the highest level and being elite, not just in word but in competition and on the field is what we're striving for and what we'll continue to strive for.
That's something you talked about, like just, speaking with these young girls and even educating them within the game about, you're a former D1 coach. I've coached only on the men's side in college. I've coached D2 and I coach at JUCO now. Is I think just, a lot of time educating these young girls on the different pathways. I'm sure when you're recruiting a player, you might say, hey, you're going to play here at Washington with me. You're going to be a stud, but maybe there's not a major for this girl. I think that's a big thing. A lot of these players get that. Sometimes that mindset, because I've worked with some teams that had DA programs, that some of these players they're so locked into that D1 mindset. And we have seen in NWSL, for example, there are players that have come out of D2 programs or small D1 programs that play pro or even go on to Europe and find a pro career. I think that's a big thing is just, I wanted to touch on that, how big the game has gotten for the women. They can play almost anywhere in the world now professionally.
Well, it goes back to their voice, right? Some of the players I know that have gone and played in Europe for years and years and years weren't maybe even a starter on their roster at their college team in the beginning, but they're just footballers for life, and they found a way to move around the globe and continue to play the game they love and stay involved and get involved in coaching. I think it goes back to the player's voice and even players listening to people that have been in their shoes, not people that have think they know what's best for them, So our players are going to be exposed to the idea that that they get to decide what's best for them, not someone else. And we will put it all out there in front of them. We'll make sure that they know that it's there, and that the feather in anyone's cap will be them being happy with the choices they made and the opportunities that they get, not someone else, on a leaderboard or on a on a roster or a top 25 or a ranking. If that kid, goes off to a Power 5 school on scholarship but transfers after 2 years, that club doesn't tout that 2 years down the line. They're done with that, right? They're on to the next, thing that they can post on social media. So I want these to be real life experiences where the players end up where they should be and where they think they should be and where they think they'll be happy. And again, competitive is relative. And you look at Bethany Balser, who played at this teeny tiny school and Michigan and ends up, being the rookie of the year in the NWSL. And now she's overseas playing with OL on loan and coming back, and she'll be with the Reign next year going into her third season. And there's just more and more examples of players like her. Lauren Millay, a kid that played at Colorado College, who, went really early on in the draft and now is being kind of traded for because they've seen the value in a young player like her.
Yeah, she's over at Racing now, right?
Yep. And there's just not many people that know that Colorado College is like this tiny, weird school in Colorado Springs that is on the block system academically. And it's one of the oldest Division I women's programs in the country. We used to play against them when I was a player, but that you don't hear them talked about that much. And the only reason they have Division I status is because of ice hockey. And it's like there's 2 Division I teams at their school and everything else is Division III. So and if you were to go ask her what her experience is like, I'm sure she'd rave about it.
Yeah.
And now she's kind of living proof that you follow your own pathway, that you put the work in and you do what it is that makes you happy and fulfills your goals. You're going to be a better player for anybody, and you can reach different levels. But to be pigeonholed into thinking that there's only one way to do things is it's a disservice to kids and to players. I feel because it ends up if they're sold one thing and then that thing does not happen for them, there's a lot of disappointment and a lot of money that's been spent for a false hope. And I just don't think that's fair.
Well, I think too, it goes back to the conversation I have a lot with the parents and stuff of the kids that I coach are looking to go to college and the kids that I recruit is that, sometimes, coaches, a lot of kids get hung up on, I can't go to this showcase. There's no way I can go to this Big 5 school. That a real good college coach that really cares about his or her squad is going to find those players outside of that, what we think is the typical pathway. Because I'm sure you found some gyms where you didn't know you had to look, and you find some players that play on these smaller, maybe inner city type of clubs that don't get that recognition.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I just think that's that's the case, right? And I always try to tell players, like, it doesn't matter how much money you spend, or the visibility piece, it is something, but if you can put yourself in front of people and just keep working hard to control what you can control in whatever environment you're in, and you're passionate about it, it can lead to things for you. And what that means is maybe not what everyone thinks it means, but you're the only person that's going to stop you playing is you.
Yeah, it's so true.
Unless you let other people stop you playing. And so, I'm a firm believer in that in anything in life. The only people that can make you, you give other people permission to make you not confident, or you give other people permission to sell you one way when, you may very well feel like there's something else that's better for you. So I feel like empowering these girls to understand that they control their pathway, and that we're here to support them and to put them in front of people and opportunities and environments where they can ask questions and learn and just be the best they want to be.
One of the things that you've been involved with throughout your career is the coaching education aspect. You've worked with the different federations and helping. You've done programs over in Morocco, for example. Like, how important is that to within this girls' academy is starting really to actually teach these young girls to get that open mindset of learning the actual game, is kind of how me and you plan our sessions. And we put almost double the time into a session than we actually physically do on the field.
Right. I just, every experience I've had in the game has helped me improve. And I want, that to be part of what my impact is with players and with coaches, is to understand that there's always somewhere where you can get better. There's always someone else that you can learn from. Our partnership with Tovo, Todd Bean's a good friend of mine, and he's over in Barcelona, and his coaching methodology is much different than what the U.S. soccer methodology is like. And it's just, there's a uniqueness to it, right? And everyone can kind of take what they want from different methodologies and apply it to themselves and apply it to different parts of the game and learn from it. We all get better. Whether you 100% buy into it or agree with it, or it works for your coaching personality, is up to you to determine. But if you close your mind off to the ways that other things are done, then you're just limiting yourself. We took our team at the University of Washington to Japan a couple of years ago, and one of the things that we did with the university team we played there at Waseda University in Tokyo was we went and trained with them one day, and then we played them the next day. And the way they train in college at the university level is player-led. They set up everything. They set up the field. They set up the session. They have discussions with the coaches. They talk about themes of practices. And then they run their sessions. The coaches observe 100%. There's not instruction going on. And then, and I'm sure there's classroom sessions and video and everything else, but then there's other discussions about topics and style of play and how we want to do this, but it's very much player led. And that blew our team away. And it blew me away in a lot of ways. I do, as a former player, think that soccer is a player's game, and you have to put the decision-making in the player's hands. And what a better way to empower a group than to have them have such a lead in their own training environment, and to be accountable to what that looks like and how that feels. It was unique.
Yeah, you just hit on something that Michelle over at Hawaii, Bud, aka Bud, is always telling me that always get a Hawaiian player on your team when you coach, because they'll pick up cones for you. And it goes back to a lot of these conversations that John DeCriscio does a show with me. His wife is Japanese, and we talk a lot about the cultural differences of how kids are raised in their environment. Like, the Hawaiian kids will always pick up cones, and a lot of the cultures in Japan is completely different. Like, I've studied their business models and stuff like that, and it is interesting the different cultural aspects and just kind of how you're out in the California West Coast and how we are here in the East Coast, that if you stay at the red light for more than 3 seconds, I'm going to beep at you. So it's just different mindsets of how big of a country we are and how much we can draw from all these different countries. I started my UEFA license a couple years ago, and it blew my mind, thinking, not that U.S. soccer is wrong, but you have to look at it. There's a different way to do it, and either way works as a coach.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think, like, the word different, sometimes there's people that have two different mindsets. Sometimes different means not as good as, and to the people with the glass half full, positive, growth mindset, different means, oh wow, that's cool, what can I learn from that? And I think that's like that culturally, it's like that geographically, it's like that ethnically, it's like that. I mean, everything you can think about when you think about different is a place where we can be better, and that makes environments better. And if we don't embrace all of them, then we're limiting ourselves.
Yeah, we draw so much. I mean, let's talk a little bit about your experience. In 2012, you went over to Morocco, and I'm sure that was a great experience, just seeing firsthand just what the girls' game looked like there at the time, which is 8 years ago.
Yeah, it tugs at my heartstrings a little bit because part of this time during the pandemic, I spent speaking to Kelly Lindsay about Morocco and about what she's doing there now, and she and Ocean, they're what they're doing over there right now. Because I said at the time when I went with Angela Hucles and Miriam Dalmy as part of a sports envoy, and I delivered basically a kind of a truncated C license to former women players there that they wanted to get into coaching. And we were at the National Training Center, and they've invested now so much into the federation, the Royal Moroccan Federation, and Kelly Lindsay there is now the head of women's football. And I was in discussions with her back in March and April about going to Morocco. And the timing for me and family here, it wasn't right for me to go join her. But her mission and her vision, I said 8 years ago, I said, if the infrastructure was here, the investment from the men's side and from the federation to the women was here, and you got the right people here, Morocco will qualify for the World Cup in 2023. And I firmly believe that now. They're an African nation that is gonna make a lot of headway. And not only is Kelly there doing great things and building leagues and getting girls playing, she's getting women coaching, and she's investing in them and in their culture. And she did the same thing in Afghanistan. It was just a little more dangerous. But it's, you mentioned Morocco, and I said that back then. And part of me is like, I wish that would just been, it was a hard opportunity for me not to latch onto and go join her over there and do that, because I just believe in what she's doing. I really believe in what she's doing. And so for me, looking back on my time there, it's really fun to watch it kind of come full circle and think about the things that I saw when I was there and how they've evolved as a country. And it's like that in so many corners of the world. Ethiopia is another place I've been, where, I took away so many lessons just from their own culture and their environment as it relates to women's soccer.
No, that's great. I mean, one of the big things I've noticed a lot of the pictures she's posting is just the facilities or top class facilities. So it's just a different stepping stones that if you give these young women just a facility and some good coaches and time on a field, it's just a matter of they will catch up to the world's game.
Yeah, you invest in them. You legitimately invest in them, and you put other women in front of them. Kelly is, and you put men around them that believe it, and they're not just doing it as something that they feel like they can get paid to do and whatever. I mean, Ocean, they are in it together over there. Men's, women's side, technical staffs. It was awesome to listen to and hear. And Kelly, as a person, has, as she always does, has 100%, immersed herself in the culture and the people there. And she as a person is easy to buy into because she means it and she's authentic. And what she's doing for the people there it's nothing short of phenomenal. And what their own federation have done to invest in it is, they're going to see the benefits of it. And I think that will spread around that continent.
Now, I think that the big thing I've learned, I've known Kelly for a while, helped her out a little bit of communications a couple years ago with Afghanistan. And the thing I've learned a lot about is you have these nations that are so passionate about football. I've got a lot of friends from Morocco. And then when they buy into, hey, let's support the women's game as much as we support the men's game. And I think that's the big thing that we're still struggling throughout the world to do. And I'm sure you've seen it firsthand with just growing up playing soccer in the 80s and just witnessing the first Women's World Cup and just seeing that immersion of our nation now celebrates the day. This is our national team. We don't even have to worry about the gender. This is our national team.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yes, to all of it. I just think that's the goal, right? Just to have that pride in your own national team and your, just to put your stamp on who you are as a country as it relates to football. And, it's been for me, like from the late 70s till now, I look back and, it's crazy how far we've come, and it's crazy to think how far it'll go still. I mean, I just think there's so much headway to be made. But it's fun to sit here right now and think about, I mean, I spent the entire month in France at the last World Cup, and I mean, I just was in heaven thinking and jealous at the same time, like, God, I wish this would have been like this when I was playing. And, but it's still fun to be someone that's as involved the game as I am, that I can travel around the world and go to World Cups and watch games and be connected and study styles of play. And, of course I'm going to cheer for the US and hope they win World Cups, but I find myself cheering for other teams because their brand of football is so entertaining also. And it's so fun to see the parity and close games as opposed to blowouts all the time. And even, those first, second round blow, they're going to stop happening eventually. Eventually, every game in a World Cup is going to be, with the exception of maybe one or two, is going to be a close, contested game and meaningful. And that's just, I don't know. It's, I think the U.S. has a lot to do with that, to be honest, as far as a bar setter early on. But it's, for me, as someone that just loves the game in general, I just think it's done the game such a service on the women's side.
I mean, say when you watch the game, I have a hard time too, just going to a game and just being a fan and trying to take my coaching hat off and say, all right, I'm just a fan. I'm just going to eat the food, enjoy the beverages. What was that experience like? First couple of years at NWSL, you jumped into the booth and you did some color commentating. And what was that experience like?
Well, just in case Bill Predmore hears this, he's the president now, and he's a partial owner, but a minority owner because they sold to OL. But that opportunity that I got from the Predmores was super fun. Like the fact that it was more of a favor than anything else. It wasn't like that was a paid gig. And then the majority of the time I was doing games with one of the commentators in town that I've known for a long time, whose daughter plays soccer, Tom Glasgow. He does the Mariners. He does a lot of stuff with Root Sport, and he's just outstanding. He's a great commentator, play-by-play guy, and voice of sports. He does a podcast now here that's outstanding. And it was really easy for me to be the color person with him doing games. And I studied and, I wrote things down. But the benefit I had is that early on in the NWSL especially, I knew every single player, where they went to school and what their background was. Like without Googling them, I knew most of the players by name, by pedigree, by national team caps, et cetera, et cetera. So it was really fun not to worry about who my audience was and just to literally ad lib. Like I was in there most of the time live tweeting while I was commentating, which was super fun. I was just tweeting at people and they were tweeting back at things I was saying. And I was on my iPad scrolling through what people were saying about some of the comments and looking at style of plays. It was the first time that I became aware of Vlatko when he was coaching at Kansas City. And I really latched on to his coaching and how his team performed. And I and then my pregame interviews with him leading up to the game that week, just getting to know him. And then he became the coach in Seattle. So it was just kind of fun to watch the evolution of that. And lo and behold, now he's the national team coach. And not that I have an eye for the game that anyone else couldn't see, but I just felt like this guy's onto something here. This guy, really liked the way he manages his club. And it's proven that I wasn't wrong. And so I don't know, it was a really fun time for me to be in the booth and do that kind of thing and talk about the game, to be able to watch and talk tactics and talk players and not just do color around their stories, but to actually, with a critical eye, talk about what was going on in the field in those early days of the NWSL. And I'm so happy for them now that we can look back and it's been the league that's of the three lasted the longest and hopefully with a future that continues to look as bright as it does right now.
No, it's been a great experience. I think that we were all holding our breath after 2015 because that was kind of like every league seemed to fold after the Women's World Cup. But with 2016 coming back and the league growing and we're seeing teams get added. Kansas City is now going to get another team back again, which is great for that city. We're seeing Louisville have a team that is a very strong soccer community, and I think that's the thing is people don't really think about what the actual soccer communities in America look like because we're always used to the big markets of LA, New York, Chicago, but there's so many of these little tiny small cities, these mid-sized cities that are just, they love women's college soccer and then they already have that fan base. Look at Portland and look at Seattle. You already have the fan base there.
Yeah, I think that, you look at some of and the benefit I think the NWSL has is to be able to look around at some of those USL markets that have done well, like a Lou City, and to look around at some of those USL Championship and even USL 1 that are soccer crazy towns that if it's the only gig, you're going to get fans and you're going to have a following. And I think it's a great way to look and build out. And it's certainly been positive growth for soccer in this country. And I hope that continues on the women's side.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me on the World Sports Show tonight. I really appreciate everything you're doing for the game. I love this Girls Academy League. I definitely keep an eye on that for my girls' teams and clubs that I coach. But again, thank you for joining me on the show, Leslie.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Charlie. It's finally good to finally catch up.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have you on again. I'm sure we could do a 5-hour show about all the stuff.
Perfect. Let us get an event under our belts in the new year.
Definitely.
You are listening to the World Sports Show on WPPMLP Philadelphia. Soccer-based sports talk covering local, nation, and global soccer. Broadcasting from the Philly Cam studio in Center City, Philadelphia on 106.5 FM.
Sports Show. Joining me on the show tonight is Chris Long, co-founder and co-owner of the new Kansas City NWSL team. Chris, thank you for jumping on the show. How are things in Kansas City?
Things are great, and Charlie, thank you for the opportunity. We're thrilled to be on with you today.
Yeah, I mean, this is exciting. We've known that just the Kansas City area has had a rich history, of soccer on the men and women's side. I mean, you talked with me about being a Comets fan. We've seen what Casey's done at MLS, and then we saw the previous NWSL team win a couple of championships. So, I mean, there must be a lot of community buzz going on to get a team back there in your area.
Incredible. I mean, the word for me is gratitude. The response we've received from the community is immense. Letters, texts, notes, you name it, people expressing a big level of thanks for bringing the team back. And I've talked to a lot of people about is, sometimes you don't realize how much you love something until you lose it. And I think that's what our community felt when they lost FC Casey was, it was certainly a feeling of being heartbroken, but now getting it back, people are even more amped up to fully support what we're trying to do on and off the field.
And you're getting back, players that played in Kansas City, like Barnhart, Amy Rodriguez. I mean, people must be stoked because you automatically have this like bond with these players. And I'm sure your children and you have these bond. These players win championships for your city, and then you come back and do it again if they want to.
Well, speaking personally, we were season ticket holders back then, and really idolize a lot of these players and their abilities, and to have them kind of back in a community that, will undoubtedly embrace them is so special. And then you mentioned the bond. The bond is certainly there among the players, but most notably, there's also a bond as well with the coach, which is Hugh Williams, who is not only a local legend, but a national legend, very well known for his technical and soccer expertise. And players are elated to be able to work with him and train under him.
Yeah, that's a big deal when I saw you guys make that announcement shortly after it coming. And that obviously is a very important factor that, you're a co-founder owner, but there are pieces of teams that, hey, this is what you're going to manage, because ownership, we always see the famous owners that sometimes are in the shadows and sometimes that like to be in the limelight.
Well, the good thing about, I'd say our organization is we hope the limelight belongs to the players. We have made a conscious decision from a mission standpoint to have it be a player-first organization. Every decision rests on that, and everything else should be easy from there. And really thinking about the ownership last.
Yeah, I mean, when you said, the player leadership, that's great to hear, especially when you look at players like, for example, like Amy Rodriguez, Nicole Barnhart, even the Canadian players like Scott and Matheson. These are players that have been around for a while, very smart, well-educated women that have been there and been to World Cups. And once that's very important that, they have that kind of leadership role.
Absolutely. I mean, the reality is they have massive platforms in and of themselves, like singular platforms, because of all the things you just mentioned. There's been so much success that they've enjoyed. They've got their own platforms to lead from. And I think from our standpoint, we're just furthering that. We're furthering their platform as well as furthering the team's platform. So yeah, the limelight is definitely going to be shown brightly on them. And I think we'll have some stuff out here coming shortly that'll start the train as far as that message.
So a lot of us, in the soccer world found out about this a few weeks ago. How long has this work been in process, like the whole behind the scenes? When did this baby get decided, hey, let's try to grow this?
Well, the initial impetus was really back to the women's, World Cup back in June 2019, and experiencing that through the eyes of my daughter and with my family, and really understanding how special a platform it is, being globally women's soccer. The discussions started as soon thereafter, and they started with our close friend and now co-founder of Angel City, Kara Nortman. Kara, Angie, and I went to college together, known each other a long, long time. So the discussion started about, wait, really? You could bring a team to a city and you could be part of the NWSL expansion? Like, that's amazing. So we really started just talking like that. But in contacting the league and expressing in a firm manner our goal of getting a team back to Kansas City, that was about 6 months ago. And really that started with Hugh Williams, the newly named coach of the team, reaching out and saying, hey, would you have interest in doing this? And little did he know, we had basically spent that prior period talking to one of our most beloved friends about the possibility of doing something like this. And so Hugh's text further lit the fire. And then we just continued to, be persistent with the league and meeting other owners and making sure that everybody knew what a special market Kansas City is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great marketplace because you guys do a great job of supporting your big, professional teams, and then supporting all the way down to what soccer. I mean, I'm a soccer coach, no disrespect to soccer, but it's still not the number one sport in America. But that it's very neat to see a city that supports the top, and then teams that are smaller like that. Well, what's been that experience for you, just being in the Kansas City area, seeing how they embrace their teams?
It's special. Look, we have gotten incredible support, encouragement, ideas out of the Chiefs, out of Sporting, out of the Royals. They're all thrilled about this. They immediately embraced it well before the public announcement. And as I look forward, when you think about the city, 4 professional major sports organizations now, I have to think that it's going to be a situation where we can collaborate and do some things together. So those discussions we'll be having in the coming time. But yeah, the ownership groups, the management teams of the local sports organizations are really special.
No, that's neat. That's something I really am a fan of when I see teams, here we're Philadelphia based, when they start interacting and helping each other. And I think that's the coolest open book is, what can you take? And I'm all for stealing. You don't gotta call it stealing, but if we come up with an idea and you want to use it, go right ahead. I mean, it's a great concept, because we've seen all kinds of different leagues do like your double headers, or we're just kind of a weekend of just Kansas City themed sports.
I can tell you, just not without naming names, I got a text message this week from one of the sports organizations, just literally saying, please let us know how we can be helpful. And there's a lot of sincerity and depth in a message like that. So there's absolutely a thought that every organization at a major pro level, if all of those succeed, the community succeeds, and there's an amplification of that. So it's in everyone's best interest to be on the same page.
Now, what's this mean that, you guys have tons of female ownership on this, and we're starting to really see something that you and we feel like we're in that stage where this is starting to become a regular thing now, with seeing women own teams, manage teams, and being very pivotal roles in sports in America?
Well, my co-founder in Angie would say it's still small on a percentage basis. And I think she really feels like we're going to play a role in being a model so that percentage increases. But you're right. The trend is definitely, our friend in that regard. But no, we're majority woman owned. We have the 3 or 4 of us, I being the sole male in the all girls club, proudly. We then have a woman-led senior leadership team in the organization. Our top 3 spots are all phenomenal executives in their own right, but obviously happen to be women too. So we like the idea of being a model for future prospective owners that are going to, think in a like-minded fashion.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot with different people on my show and just different friends, people like you, that, that not every young woman can play professional, but I think it opens up a lot of these pathways to say, hey, you might not be skilled enough to play professional soccer, but you can be in these roles, because we are starting to see a lot of those women get into those management type roles, that those are very achievable things.
I absolutely love that statement. Yes. And you're seeing it across every league, right? We had the first female representation on the refereeing side for the MLS Cup, right? That was a remarkable thing. You've seen it in the NBA. You've seen it in the NFL. You've seen it in the front office of Major League Baseball. I absolutely think that people are embracing, as they should, the value of diversity and inclusion and what that means, not only society-wise, but also broader business-wise. It's just good business, and it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. And the big topic that we all talk about in the soccer world, we've seen it's been a hot topic, is the equality, that those are some of the biggest things that can bring you players or keep players away, is just giving these players an opportunity to have a livable wage, not having to have these part-time jobs just to pay the bills.
Well, I look at the trajectory that the NWSL is on, and I think it is a steep one. And I think obviously the CBS contract is relatively new. The Twitch, contract, I think there's a lot more to happen that's going to shine a spotlight on everything women's soccer. And I think when that happens, people are going to see the true value of the platform, because, you mentioned earlier, maybe in the U.S. soccer isn't the number one favorite sport, but it is globally. And there's no doubt about that. And I think that the NWSL is going to sit at the top, being the best global league in the globe.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing these European clubs, and Australia is another good league. And that's the neat part, is now that, your daughters, have the ability, your wife, to be able to watch women's soccer almost year-wide on TV. And that's just something you and I just did not even grow up with, having any type of women's sports on TV. So we're getting to live this through our daughters and watch them just grow. And it's a regular thing for them to just turn on TV and there's women's sport.
It really, it's tremendous. Even, you think about, not to move away from soccer, but even the broadcasting of, softball now.
Yeah.
And certainly women's tennis. And yes, it is becoming ubiquitous. And that is a special thing for youth to realize. If you've got passion and you've got special skill, and not everybody can meet, obviously, the skill threshold necessary to play professionally. But if you have that, you can get paid. And you could be, a well-known, very successful global athlete and have your own platform. I think it's so special. And, I'm proud of the types of developments that, we've seen as it pertains to women's sports. I think it's just starting.
No, it's great. Just that the technology is such at our advantage right now that, the big thing when you and I grew up, that it had to be over the air, TV over the air. And we were limited to a few channels. And then cable TV comes out. Now we got 15 channels. But now you got 500 channels. And you got channels that, networks around, we don't have to put it over the air. The over-the-air thing is kind of slowly dwindling. That if you get these, like you said, like Twitch and the smart apps and all these different platforms that any of us involved with, that it's hard to believe we can just watch it on our phone. You don't have to have a TV subscription necessarily.
Yeah, no, again, it's ubiquitous. So, we think about all the opportunities, all the options out there, all the tremendous athletes in women's sports today. I agree. It's wonderful.
Now, so we want to talk a little bit about the branding, the name, when franchise are awarded, it goes to the city and what league you're going to play in. What's the process? You guys are kind of talking amongst yourself about the name of the team.
We really are keen on having the identity reflect not only the community, which of course for us is a region, right? The broader Kansas City metro region, but also the players, and finally, this style of play, and really trying to unite those three factors. So we've been really hard at work in doing that. We've got great advisors around the table. We've had a lot of conversations with key constituents, and I think we're going to unveil something pretty special that people are going to be embracing immediately. So it's been a lot of hours, a lot of discussions, a lot of edit and replace, but we feel like we're in a good spot, and hope to unveil it relatively soon.
Now, the big thing on your calendars probably is the draft that's coming up, and that's the chance to get some really fresh young players that they're just going to come up through your system.
Yes. I mean, obviously from a focus standpoint, January 13th is the number one priority, right? I mean, everything is player related. And so Hugh and his team have been hard at work preparing, for that. We of course like those types of situations. So I think when you see Hugh and some of his decision making slowly unfold, I think you'll be impressed.
No, I think that's like almost everybody's dream out there is just having, and I'm a sucker for that, when the individual draft lists come out, you got hundreds of players, and it's not necessarily picking the best player for your system, or hey, maybe we just want to pick the best player. So I'm sure you guys are starting to have some of those conversations. That's why you leave it up to the coaches.
Yeah, that's why I immediately deferred to my comment being Hugh, because he is the decision maker there. We understand what we're good at, and we also know what he's excellent at, and that's where he's excellent. And so he has full decision-making authority, as you'd expect, for those types of decisions.
I want to talk something that really caught my attention about giving back 10% of the sponsorship revenue. I mean, that hits home so much with the state of our world right now. You talk about another item that we think just makes sense. But yes, we are doing 10% give back. So all of our sponsorship dollars. And the item that I think is absolutely critical here is we have suggested areas that are important to us. Keeping kids in sports, education, equality, but it's a two-way street, and it's also designed to have the sponsor, in sponsorship, really drive what is important to them. And so, we are in the midst of a lot of discussions on that particular front, as you might imagine, and they've been remarkable. It has been so well received. Our hope is more people maybe adopt this, because again, it fits well with what sports is around to do, which is really improve a community, bind a community, excite a community. So you want to give back ultimately, and give back to that community. Any news at all about maybe training grounds, playing facilities? Because I know that you guys are new to this. I mean, what are the talks on that?
Sure. So we do have training facilities. We haven't unveiled yet the exact spot. But for game day, we're going to play at T-Bone Stadium, which is where actually Sporting KC played for 3 seasons before moving into their newly created stadium, which is Children's Mercy Park. It's a fantastic venue, new ownership. They've really rolled out the red carpet for us. I can't say enough about them and the way they've embraced us. So yeah, we will be playing there, and there's 12 home games. So we will be excited to share those with the community.
So at home games, I got to ask you, is there going to be some KC barbecue?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, just making sure if I'm going to make that trip out to you.
There is a part, so there's a lot of things going on the food and beverage side, but one of them is a revolving set of local Kansas City barbecue restaurants that will be coming into the stadium so that people get a flavor of all of the top ones.
Well, now I got to go to all 12 home games. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's gonna be pretty cool.
So yeah, I mean, you're originally from the Pennsylvania area, so we talk a lot about food here on World Sports Show. So I don't think you'll mind talking a little bit about your experiences, because I've never experienced Kansas City barbecue. I've never been there. I've only experienced it at the Change restaurants, but I feel like doesn't even close. I have family in North Carolina, father's from North Carolina, so you got to compare the two because you've had both.
Well, I've been a proud Kansas Cityan now for going on 15 years. So of course I'm gonna
You're in.
talk to my local community, and I think Kansas City barbecue is as good as it gets. Now, of course, there's 4 or 5 locations across the states that would debate that, but we have a lot of upstarts. We have a lot of the old standards that are here that have been here for a long, long time. Which the presidents visit. But it's a scene that I think is like no other.
That's good, and I love the idea, like you said, bringing in the local restaurants. That's something that obviously has been very impacted hardly in 2020. So they must be ecstatic. A lot of times in the restaurant industry, it's just getting their name out there. All you got to do is have one bite of something, and you're like, I'm going to go there and get it.
Yeah, well, we anything we could do to promote local work, we would of course do. And the barbecue scene obviously is a big piece of that. It's one of the things. If you look at what defines Kansas City, barbecue's definitely on that list. They're undoubtedly.
So a little bit of history for the fans out there. You played college basketball at Princeton. Your wife played some college sports. She played goalkeeper high school. How competitive is your household?
Oh, it's for those that know us well, I think you hear the words incredibly competitive. What's funny though is, although we're so competitive, I think there is one person that we've now known over the years that's more competitive, and that's Hugh Williams, who is the coach of the team. So there's definitely a culture of wanting to win on the field. And I know you've been so gracious to allow me to talk about how we want to win off the field.
Yeah.
But there's no doubting there's a high set of expectations for the performance on the field.
No, that's true. I mean, I'm a coach, youth coach. At the end of the day, like, it's that feeling of you hate losing so much that when you win, you just kind of, all right, cool, I won. I did what I was supposed to do. But I'm the kind of coach and player that I obsess with losses years and years after versus, all right, that was a good win. I don't know how you were as a player.
Well, I think as a player, I was always more obsessed with how do I get better? How do I improve my craft? Like, and not as much thinking in the past, but really thinking future development.
Yeah.
And honestly, ultimately wasn't good enough to play at the level that, we're talking about women's soccer playing at. I mean, it's just, totally different league relative to what my athletic skill was. But, I think that's a good mindset to have. I think for our team, certainly Hugh's trying to instill that, mentality of obviously wanting to win, but even more so, how are we competing and are we getting better each and every game, not only individually, but as a team? And, I share that. I like that sort of development focus, and that's one that he undoubtedly espouses too.
No, we've seen that so much in the sports industry that you have some of the best women players coming to you in the entire world, and taking them, and they already think they're at 100%, and just find that hidden 10%. And that's really what a lot of pro sports is, just find that 1 or 2% to get you guys up over the edge. And hats off to those kind of coaches, because that's a special kind of talent.
I agree. As much has been said, about the mental game that, pro athletes have, right? That additional benefit because they're so mentally strong. And the coaches that can, develop the physical side and combine it with the mental side are really the ones out there that you want to surround yourself with. And, and Hugh's definitely one of those.
Yeah, and just about our sport of soccer, it's not a stop, go sport. Us coaches, we're involved, but at the end of the day, I love the idea about player driven. That's something I talk about a lot with my players. At the end of the day, they're on the field for 45 by themselves. There's only a few things we can really do as a coach.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, the part that I'm most excited about is, really seeing that type of leadership firsthand. And with that, the communication, one of the best things in some ways of not, if there's anything you could say is a good thing in this case, but not having fans in the stands, you've been able to hear the athletes talk. And, you don't realize when you're in the stadium, you're in the arena because it's so loud. But now that you take away all that noise and you hear these amazing athletes talking to each other and directing each other and leading each other, that's pretty special. And I think with soccer, that's one of the most important characteristics is just your communication on the field. Because what you said is right. The coaches and out there, they are on their own for a long period of time.
It's interesting because as a coach, the big thing we talk about, you got to communicate more. But there's been times where I caught the same thing to you, watching these games with no fans. And sometimes I don't hear players talking, but they're clicking on all cylinders. So it really made me think that you don't have to communicate. If you're that good of a team, you kind of already know where your teammate is. And that part really blows my mind. So the same thing you play in basketball. Sometimes you just know where your player is before they even get there.
No, you bring up a great point. It's like poetry in motion when you see that.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful picture. Chris, I thank you so much for joining me on World Sports Show tonight. I look forward to watching Kansas City. I'm really excited for the draft. I'm really excited for those players that I have some good relationships with, just seeing them to go back to Kansas City. I know that they're going to have a great time and they're well taken care of with you guys. And anything you need from us on the show, let me know.
Charlie, thank you for the opportunity and really appreciate it and enjoyed it. And we look forward to staying in touch.
You are listening to the World Sports Show on WPPMLP Philadelphia. Soccer-based sports talk covering local, nation, and global soccer. Broadcasting from the Philly Cam studio in Center City, Philadelphia on 106.5 FM.